want to go into more detail on your earlier answer, the part where we discussed numbers and letters.
The deadest of the dead are numbers. Everything we describe is done through numbers. Even computer technologies are all based on dead numbers. But if we talk about letters and sounds, those are alive.
For many people, with myself included, the first impulse is to try and force the fork to fit the spoon, like, for example, replacing computer codes, the zeros and ones with letters, or take the simplest particles, which physicists have basically described. They're just numerical structures. No one can really explain what those tiniest flying particles actually are. They're just numbers, numeric data, that's it. So if we keep moving in that direction, that's once again a dead end for science, right?
I'd put it this way. It's a transitional phase. It's not a dead end. At the very least, it gives the patient a chance to be put on a ventilator. In other words, it gives you the ability to breathe, because once you start doing something in a new way, it's already more alive than whatever you were doing before. If you're engaged in routine, repetitive activities, doing the same kinds of things day after day, you form very rigid neural pathways. And that in turn suppresses your immune system and your endocrine system. So when the time comes to adapt to a different kind of pressure or a different environment, it's much harder. But if here you're dancing, there you're singing, then you're playing tennis, learning poetry, playing golf, having sex, watching films, going to the theater, painting, your health is likely to stay strong. As long as, of course, you're not judging others for not doing it the way you do. So what does this mean? If we begin to allow ourselves to engage with models and technologies outside of what we already know, we start absorbing them almost instantly without the burden of formal learning. Reflexes begin to activate on their own. It's like people who can easily play football, basketball, tennis, ping pong. They just have a developed ability for that. The same way someone might be great with numbers and logic, while someone else thrives in creativity and poetry. And I'll tell you, if we can bring all of that together, we unlock an original, fundamental capacity that's powerful enough to move into love and start changing this world. Because whether we're talking about the principles of science or non-scientific things like religion or astrology, or even math or poetry itself, we eventually run into the fact that all of it was built on agreements. Agreements I call hand-waving and foot shuffling. And if those systems were built on the golden ratio, they would produce external results. But if they also include love, then those results will be internal as well. And when the internal and external begin to harmonize, we start creating and collapsing into probable realities that resonate with it. These realities become a source of energy from which we build the harmony in our lives.
All right, so what are the current prospects for collapsing into the nearest probable realities? The ones that could shift us onto the tracks of a higher level.
The prospects are weak for now.
Nice.
We'll still be moving along the lower levels, unfortunately. The world has not accepted the idea that God is the manifestation of the love between man and woman, that God is the union of cosmos and earth. Symbolically speaking, the earth married the cosmos. The earth exists within the cosmos, and the cosmos sets the conditions in which the earth will live. The earth materializes those conditions. It takes the macro and transforms it into the micro. And that micro, in turn, gives us matter, materialization, experience. That experience then flows back into the macro and transforms the greater cosmic structure. And sadly, this process has been disrupted. What we now have is men on one side and women on the other. If we were talking about separating flies from cutlets, that might make sense. But in our case, I'd say it's highly inappropriate in relation to the harmonious structure of the cosmos. This will be changed by force, not by us, but by external energy informational structures. And the first to be hit will be those who preach that men and women should be separated, men should live in monasteries alone, and women should live in monasteries alone. Even those who simply promote tolerance for the growing trend of men living with men and women living with women, why not let it be, will face very serious consequences. Because unfortunately, they don't understand the fundamental principle. If you work in creativity or science or art or culture, any kind of energy informational structure must be grounded through the interaction between man and woman. If that interaction is lacking, the man or woman begins to die. Or they develop a tendency to shift their orientation, to alter their energy structure, and become part of a minority, the kind everyone talks about today. And if we continue to support this trend, everyone who supports it will, let's say, be removed, together with those who go along with it.
So we're responsible for every opinion we hold.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not entirely our own.
If we say something like, "Oh, Jim, good job taking that apartment from Bob," then karmically, we'll have to take responsibility for that person who took the apartment,
Jim,
because we agreed with what he did. We supported that. We even felt proud of him, like, wow, that was clever. He managed to get it signed over to himself. So when someone says that's normal, they'll get hit just like those who are actually doing what they think is normal. But in truth, what's truly normal is what was created by God. And God created everything in such a way that this world, and let's take people as an example, exists because men and women love each other. And from their love, children are born. That's how society exists. That's how the world continues. Because if we were to flip that around, and I don't want to exaggerate here, but just as a joke, imagine if all the lions only interacted with lions and lionesses with lionesses, if all the stallions kept to themselves and the mares did the same, then before long, all of them, or at least most of them, would end up on the endangered species list. They'd simply die out. And today, this is exactly the kind of trend we're seeing, a result of knowledge born out of a dead state. When we're taught without love in schools, universities, when children are raised without love in kindergartens, this tendency is what leads us to a point where, having not received enough from our parents or from those close to us, we begin to degrade and, for the sake of survival, start to shift our orientation.
But what about everyone's favorite conspiracy theories? You know, the ones about the golden billion? Or the idea of a secret agreement where some kind of elite or hidden world government wants to reduce the Earth's population down to 1 billion people, something like that? Or that they're basically interested in pushing gender shifts and reducing the overall number of people on the planet because the planet is wearing out and the alternatives, well, they don't exactly look promising in terms of comfort or quality of life.
The Earth is wearing out for one simple reason. There's not enough life on it. Take plastic, for example. It's made from oil and it's not ecological, or even electricity, which is supposedly good for us. But then we look at train engineers on electric rail systems and realize their health isn't exactly great. And when we move people from gasoline or diesel cars to electric vehicles, on the one hand, it's eco-friendly and cleaner air and all that. But on the other hand, every person sitting on top of a battery is exposing themselves to a serious health risk. And unfortunately, those risks often lead to illnesses that are basically incurable. Cancer, for example, we're still fighting it and not very effectively. And this trend is only going to grow. If you look at the increasing production of electric vehicles, you'll notice a similar or even steeper increase in cancer rates. It's because people are being exposed to an excessive amount of electromagnetic fields. And on top of that, if we don't come up with some kind of ultra ecological battery solution, the ones we're using now, when they need to be disposed of in 5 to 7 years, we'll find out they're nearly impossible to recycle. No one's really addressed this yet. And the ecological disaster we're currently facing from plastic, that will seem like kindergarten compared to what's coming from this one. And I'm only talking about one area here, electric vehicles and their effect on the people who drive them and the environmental impact of their batteries. Theoretically, this can be changed.
What positive trends are there? Ones that could save the Earth, bring change?
I'd say this: a mother's love for her children.
What about technology?
That's the primary one. And when it comes to technology, it's actually very simple. Just look it up on YouTube. Volkswagen once made a plastic out of hemp, and they built an entire car out of that eco-friendly material. The car ran on fuel made from the same hemp. And by the way, we know that hemp produces an excellent textile. Back in the Soviet Union, all money was printed on hemp-based paper, which had the unique property of being water resistant. Even more impressive, when we make clothing from hemp instead of cotton, it doesn't rot. and over time, it becomes stronger and more durable. We haven't even touched on the medical applications of this plant. Now, if we look at what the Japanese have done, they've developed a hydrogen engine. And we know that with just a bit more investment, it's possible to produce hydrogen right inside the car, along with a hydrogen tank. And that alone could solve the greenhouse gas issue. We're only talking about one area, the transformation of the automotive industry, where vehicles stop running on electric motors and start running on hydrogen instead.
But there have been so many attempts. Volkswagen, hydrogen engines, Zeppelins, alternating current.
Let me put it this way. There's such a thing as an egregore, and an egregore operates by a simple principle. Whoever gets the most votes wins. So because so much knowledge has been created without love, it's the knowledge without love that ends up winning. That's why, inevitably, forests will keep getting cut down, and those who prioritize things like bleaching paper will come out on top in this trend. Which is why hemp was banned by the UN, because supposedly 15% of it has psychoactive effects. So they went ahead and banned the entire 100%, including the other 85% that doesn't. And that hemp could have brought massive improvements to our ecology. Just imagine if all plastic were made from hemp, not to mention when hemp is planted in poor soil, it actually improves the soil. And I won't go further down that road. There are countless things we could be doing. But this is the trend we're in. We only have the right to engage with these solutions when we're also engaging with children. Because if we all suddenly rush to change laws and systems, even if it's from a place of love, switching to ecological products, creating things that truly benefit the planet, we still need an energetic field for it all to exist and thrive within. And people unfortunately lack love, so they start supporting deforestation, Elon Musk, neural networks, and chips in the brain. But even just using a bit of common sense, when a muscle goes unused for a few months, it atrophies. Same thing happens when you implant a chip. You cause the neural pathways, the ones responsible for carrying the electric impulses of thought, to atrophy. And in just a year and a half, what you're left with is a piece of meat, controlled by, let's say, someone like Trump, who can activate or destabilize your chip if he wants. That would be a society of the living dead. Right now, we still have a chance to change all this if we learn to enter into a state of presence here and now, when we stop dwelling on the past, when we stop clinging to the future and simply live in the present, experiencing the world through the perception of the heart. Because even our love today is based on belief systems. If he gives me flowers, if he earns good money, if he compliments me, if he's kind, polite, well-mannered, then I love him. But the moment he stops giving flowers, doesn't buy gifts, uses harsh language, I don't love him anymore. That's belief-based love. One set of beliefs loving another. But when love moves from heart to heart, the words and actions that come from it don't follow definitions, they follow harmony.
And you mentioned earlier that there's an external force coming in, something that's going to reprogram us or change us somehow.
It's already happening. We're already being reprogrammed, whether we like it or not. Right now, the tendency of love is already in motion. Everything that was created through models and technologies before August 2021, all of it was leading only to destruction, because all of it was given the green light by what I call the dead horse, knowledge born out of other knowledge. Have you seen modern art? You just want to hug it and cry.
Well, it depends.
If you take a look at non-contemporary art, you'll notice it's all built on suffering. That's because there's no love in it. And in order to feel anything, you have to suffer. People have forgotten how to love. For some reason, they believe that family is hard work. But in reality, it's the greatest joy when there's love between a man and a woman. Everything has been turned upside down because we've missed the most important tendency. We are not supposed to teach children. We're supposed to love them. And when we love them, we create the conditions in which they learn everything on their own. You've seen it. Ants, birds, they're born with certain inherent abilities. And what I want to tell you is this. We, too, are born with access to the entire body of human experience, accumulated over thousands of years. But sadly, that experience is full of conflict. And to keep us from self-destructing, there's a tendency for us to forget that experience. Even at the genetic level, we age for one simple reason: entropy. Because inside us, many different laws are operating at once, and they contradict each other. And that internal conflict is what destroys us energetically. The more we know, the faster we die, if that knowledge wasn't acquired in love.